Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Three Principles Global Community. The Three Principles Global Community, or 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that's committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles to people throughout the world. Today, we have Maria Iliffe Wood with us, and Maria is a coach to leaders, other coaches, and writers. She works with people who want to grow beyond models, theories, tools, and techniques. And you can find out more about her on several different websites, both her coaching one and an author one. And I'm going to post them rather than speak them now. I'm going to post them below the recording when I post this on YouTube so that you can get in touch with her if you are interested. And Maria is going to talk about comfort in the discomfort of living in the unknown, which is a perfect title for the end of this year. So thank you, Maria, for being with us. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Lovely. Thank you, Bonnie. I'm not professing to be telling anybody anything, that I know anything in particular. So when I thought about what I was going to talk about today, because this was planned in August, this webinar, and I think what I'm going to do is going to tell you the story of how all of this came about and what's happened in the meantime, because it's just been unbelievable. And so one of the things that I'm just going to do is I'm just going to tell you about how I see life has worked for me this year, because I've seen so many different things this year compared to any other previous year. And I know for a fact that doesn't mean that tomorrow I'm going to know how it works. Like I can see how it's kind of worked for me when I look back in hindsight, but I don't know, because so many things have changed for me. I don't really know how things are going to work going forward. So all I hope is that by sharing what I've been seeing, particularly over this last year, and sharing the story of what's happened to me this year, then perhaps something will occur to you that comes from your knowing and your wisdom. So, and I start every single webinar that I ever do with saying, like, you don't have to take anything that I say as true. Like, just see what's true for you and see what comes from you. But I just hope that in sharing the story, you'll see something about what's going on in your life that is helpful to you. So must have been around about the end of July, beginning of August, Bonnie and I were exchanging emails, and I can't even remember why we were exchanging emails. But as part of that, because if any of you know Bonnie, she's lovely to have a little chat with when you exchange emails with her. It's not just can you do this? Yes, there's always a little bit of conversation that goes on. So there was a little bit of chit chat going on, and I was telling her about a book that I'd just finished writing and published. And in her email, she said, "It sounds like you've got comfortable in the discomfort of living in the unknown." And I wrote back and said, "That sounds like a good title for a webinar." So, of course, what does Bonnie do? Bonnie says, "Yes, can we put a date in?" Now, it was interesting to me because I'm just going to say yes. Like, things like that come up and like it just feels right and it's good, and I say yes. And at the time, I remember thinking, I wonder what it's going to be like in December, bearing in mind all the things that's happened so far. And I was thinking, I bet I'm going to have a bit of a story about living in the unknown come December, because at that point, I had no work. Hardly any work at all. My savings were just kind of how I described it was it's like a bathtub of water, like the plug had been pulled out and there was a tiny drip. So like I was seeing all of our savings go and there was no sign of work or anything. And so I was thinking, like, I bet by December I'm really going to be in the unknown. So we'll see what happens. So when the pandemic hit, like we were set for, so I run a leadership development consultancy with my husband, and we've got a number of associates, and we do big programs in large organizations for groups of leaders And also I do coaching. I work one-to-one with coaches, and I work one-to-one with leaders. And so around about, what was it, about the 17th of March, like our whole order book just disappeared, like a 96% drop in our income on the 17th of March, when we were headed for our best year ever. In January, we said, if we don't get a single other piece of work, we're going to be on our best year ever. And then that happens. And what was really interesting to me when I look back is like, I had obviously a load of thinking. You can imagine, I'm sure everybody's had similar things that's happened to them with the pandemic about what we're going to do, how we're going to survive, you know, all sorts of things going on. And what happened was, first of all, like if I look at the breadcrumbs now, so this is what I do when I look back, I see the breadcrumbs. So like the first breadcrumb was, I entered a writing competition. Like, because I published a book a few years ago. I wrote a book a year ago, which I've not yet published. And I write pretty much every day. Like, writing is a big part of my life and has been for about 12 years. So I saw this competition, and you had to write something with a title of 2 words. The 2 words were under pressure. And it only had to be short. It had to be 300 words. So I wrote this piece. I entered the competition and I sent it off. I didn't get anywhere with it, but anyway. And the thought occurred to me, well, why don't I do something like that on a daily basis on my social media? So every day I'm going to write something about 2 words that come up. And I would ask people who I knew to give me 2 words that I would write a piece about. And what happened was, every day I was writing a piece that I put on social media. And it started off as a bit of fun, but it started to become a real, the stories were about how I was responding to the pandemic and all of the different things that were happening, with all the warts and everything. But every single piece as well also had, well, not every single piece, but a lot of the pieces also had a bit of a principles message in the piece as well. So I was spending 2 or 3 hours a day writing, editing, crafting these pieces and putting them on social media. But in my head, what was going on? I got this load of chatter going, you know, what are you doing? Like, you 96% drop in turnover. This ain't going to get you no work. You know, you need to be doing something, to be marketing, to be reaching out to people. And I had all this mental stuff going on in my head. But every day I sat down and I wrote a piece, I crafted it, I put it on social media. And then over a period of time, like, I was getting a really good response to this. And then I did this little, like, a live stream. It just occurred to me to do a live stream on Facebook to say, you know, I've been doing these daily yarns. If anybody's interested in how I've been doing them, join me and I'll just tell you about them. And as I prepared for that live stream, I realized that already I'd got 48 pieces. So I'd written 48 days on the trot. And I thought, oh, I've got a book here. And so I thought, oh, that's interesting. But I didn't do anything with it. And I just carried on. So I did the live stream. I had loads of people, not loads, but a few people come on, and a few people contacted me saying, oh, maybe you could help me with my book or things like this. Just very, very casual inquiries and things. And then when the lockdown ended, I think it was something like, that was about 80 days later. I thought, all right, okay, I'm going to stop now. And now I thought, I'll pull them into a book, and I'll publish a book. And this is the book. So I wrote this book and I published it between, I'll tell you even the dates because it's in here. So from the 18th of March, and I think I published it on the 25th of July. And then, so this is around about the time that Bonnie and I were talking. So that's why Bonnie got this idea about, oh, you must be getting comfortable living in the discomfort of being in the unknown. So what's happened since this is I've now set up a publishing company. And I'm now helping people to write, edit, and publish their books. And I've developed some programs which I've already piloted and already had some success with and launched for next year, helping people to write, edit, and publish their books. I had no clue I was going to be doing this at the beginning of the year. It was not on my radar at all. And what I've seen since, when I've reflected back, is that when I was working with leaders, it really felt like, and I only know this now in comparison to how I'm experiencing this now. Like when I look at it, it felt like working with leaders was me pushing a rock uphill, compared to how it feels now as like I'm in the flow of the river and the river's taking me along. All I've been doing this year is just doing things that kind of felt right and felt enjoyable. And it's just brought me to this place. And then, like, as I saw, it was almost like, it's like when I'm writing a story, it's like the story emerges. Like what I love about writing is when I'm writing, it's like, I don't know what I'm going to write about. I just allow the writing to come through me. And then it's interesting. Like, oh my God, the story's going here. Like, oh, that's a surprise. I didn't know it was going to go in that direction. And so that's how, like, my life is kind of a reflection of what happens in my writing. It's like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize I was going to go here. Like, I wanted to go here. I think I should be doing something over here to push, you know, to really, like, I need to get more working with leaders. I need to, you know, do more marketing. But for some reason, this has been the thing that has felt right to do. And even though I've had, you know, the mental chatter that's gone, why are you doing this? What are you doing? Like even now, it's like I'm setting up this publishing company, and I look at other publishing houses and publishing companies, and like, you know, they've got 25 years experience of being in the publishing industry, or 20 years of being an editor for books, you know, and I'm just starting out now, and it's like I'm learning as I go along. But there's really something about it that just feels like it's the thing to do. Not even that it's the right thing to do, it's just, this is just what makes sense in the moment. And what this year has really made me see, and I kind of had this idea already, I kind of knew it already, is that like anything that we think we have control of, we have no control at all. It's like the only thing that we know with any kind of certainty is right here, right now. Like this is one of the reasons when I was thinking about what I was going to talk about today, I kind of, what I do is I sit down and I write. Like whenever I'm preparing for anything, I write. That's my way of seeing what comes through. And what came through in that writing just you know, kind of an hour ago was like, I can't say with any certainty what's going to happen this evening or tomorrow. Like I know what's in my diary for tomorrow, but I can't say with any certainty whether it's going to happen. And the thing with what's happened with the pandemic, it's just like that was so like not within anybody's radar. So it just really kind of shows you that life is just not in our control at all. And the more I've kind of relinquished any ideas of having control, the easier my life's got. That doesn't mean that I don't try and control it sometimes, but like I have far less expectation and far less concern about what the outcome is going to be. So I do have the thinking about, you know, I've got these programs next year. What if nobody signs up for them? But it's not even a difficult question, because the answer comes straight away, straight back at me. Well, if nobody signs up for them, nobody signs up for them. Like life is going to bring something else. Or if only one person signs up for them, then that one person will sign up for them. And that'll be perfect. That'll be just as it's meant to be. And I'll probably learn a lot just from working with that one person. And I've had loads of I've had loads of thinking about what I should and shouldn't be doing this year. It's not that I've not had any of that, but it's not had the grip on me that it would have had on me on the past, I think. This year as well, I started running. That was really interesting because I've never ever been a runner. I don't know if anybody's like this, the same as me. I've hated running my whole life. I've always said I've not got the shape for running. I'm not built for running. I can't do it. And I had this thought. Somebody asked me if I wanted to do the Couch to 5K, and I heard myself going, yeah. And I thought to myself that the flash of thought that was just before that yes was, what if I can't run and I'm not a runner? Is one of those thoughts that I've been believing my whole life, and it's not true. And now what happens? I can run for 30 minutes non-stop, can run for 2 miles non-stop. And the whole way, the whole time that I'm running, my head is telling me I can't do it. It's too hard. It's too difficult. I'm going to stop when I get to the gate. I'm going to turn around before I get to this point. I'm not going to go. My legs aren't going to get, my legs hurt. My legs are heavy. It's too cold. It's like, oh, and I've got all of this going on the whole time that I'm running. And yet I still run for 30 minutes and I still run for 2 miles without stopping. It's like my head has got no clue whatsoever what my body is physically capable of. And the same thing has been true, like my whole life, like my head has been telling me over and over again, I can't do this and I can't do that and I shouldn't do this and I shouldn't do that. And yet, like most of the time, probably all of the time, that's just not true. And so this is what I've been really seeing this year really clearly, that whatever I think I can or can't do, I can do way more. And it isn't that, like Bonnie who said, it looks on the outside, it looks like I've got comfortable with being uncomfortable in the unknown. I think the link was the discomfort of the unknown. And I think it's like, for me, it's like nothing is known. And so discomfort and unknown are not linked, like they're two different things. Like discomfort is just our response to not knowing anything. And that's thought created. And like, you don't even have to, like I've been uncomfortable, but it's not an issue. It's not that I've got, how do I say this? I can't even say that I've got comfortable with being uncomfortable or I've got comfortable with the unknown. I think one of the things that I've been really seeing is like, you know, when you're just in it, like when we're just in the moment doing the things that we do when we've not got all the mental chatter, like there's no such thing as discomfort or confidence or resilience or no such thing as needing all of those things. It's like when you're just in the moment, like doing, like when I was writing the yarns, I was just in the yarns, writing the yarns. I wasn't, it was only afterwards or before I was writing that I had all this thinking about what I should and shouldn't be doing. In the moment, just doing what feels right. Like you have the confidence, you have the resilience, you're already comfortable, it's already calm. It's like we don't need any of that because we've already got it. And it's only afterwards, kind of when we're thinking about things, when we're thinking about it, that we feel like we need any of that. Is any of this making sense? I'm going to open it up to people, especially when it's a little group. So what are you seeing? What's making sense? What are you seeing from your story?
Hello.
Hi there. Is that JJ?
Yes, it is.
Hi, JJ.
Hi. I'm sorry I'm a bit late, but what you're sharing is really settling me down. It's a feeling of um, not living in the future of what's tomorrow going to bring, or the many things that could be done today, while the sun's still up. It really settled me down in the moment. So it was very joyous, a quiet joy of contentment. And with this um, pandemic going on, there's been a lot of busy mindedness for me, but I really appreciate being what you're saying. Can we ever be comfortable in the unknown? Because it's always unknown. So that really resonated as a truth. Um, so that's what I'm hearing right now. So I just thought I'd chime in and say thanks.
Thank you, JJ.
Hello,
Hello. Can you tell me how you say your name?
my name Mitsue. It's a Japanese name,
Mhm.
Mitsue. So I understand what JJ is saying too right now. I have just a question, or maybe I want to confirm. I don't like to argue. It's something that doesn't happen very often. But there's a time when I was in the middle of an argument. It wasn't my choice, but there it was. And I found myself very physically uncomfortable. That I was thirsty. I didn't want to do it, but I had to, because it was confronting someone that was important to me. I didn't even know that this thirst was coming from my nervousness, maybe. I'm not even sure where it was coming from. I realized later that I often get thirsty when I'm nervous.
Me too. Why do you think I've got this here?
But are you saying that even though we may feel maybe sometimes the physical symptoms, like right now, I have no idea what I'm going to say, but even though we might feel it and perhaps even recognize it or acknowledge it, that it's something that we go forward with anyway? I mean, if someone were to say, like, in 5 minutes, you're going to start an argument with someone, and I had a choice to stay, to run away, I think I would hell on out of there. So I'm just wondering if you find yourself in a moment, then you find yourself with the resources within yourself to deal with things. Is that what you're saying, or?
I don't know if that's what I'm saying. So, but I'll say what's occurring to me as a result of you asking the question. It's interesting to me that you ask about anger, because that is one of the insights that I've had this year about me and anger. And so one of the things that if you were to look at any of the daily yarns, like some of them, I was getting really angry at the journalists, the politicians, all of the stuff that was going on. And I got to a point where I could not watch the news at all, because I was getting so angry. I was getting so worked up. Now, for me, like, anger's been a big deal in my life, because I used to be a really, really shouty, angry kind of person. Like, so I know.
I don't believe you.
Wow. What I do is I put you in touch with some of the people who used to work for me quite a few years ago, because there was a point in my career when I was a manager of a leader of, I've got a team of 65 people and a deputy manager who was a wonderful lady. And in her appraisal one year, we talked about how we worked together, and she said, it's really good having a lift to work with you in the mornings, because then I can let the team know whether it's okay to talk to you today or not. So that's like, that was, and honestly, to goodness, that's what she said. That's almost her exact words. What happened, like, I didn't know anything about the principles then. So how I see that then is like, I could have retaliated. I could have got really angry with her at the time. But my wisdom, I thought, oh God, that's not the kind of person that I want to be. So without knowing about the principles, I had that insight, and then I worked really hard at not being an angry, shouty person anymore. And what happened was, like, I kind of moved into this, instead of having this identity of being a red-haired, Irish, hot-tempered, fiery lady, like now my self-created identity was like, I'm this really calm, zen-like kind of person who never shouts and never gets angry and never gets. I've been married for 8 years, and I shouted at my husband once, and it was such a surprise, we both ended up laughing. But so I've been this really angry person, and then I'm this really calm person, and then I was getting really angry with the news and everything, and I didn't like it. Like, I was like, I can't be doing with this anymore. I can't watch the news. It's outside in, isn't it? Like, I can't watch the news because it's making me so angry. Anyway, so that happened. So for a couple of weeks, I didn't watch the news. And then George Floyd got murdered. And I got angry all over again. And I realized that I couldn't not watch the news, because otherwise I'm not going to find out what's going on in the world. But what that made me realize is that what my anger was telling me was what was important to me and what I need to stand up for in the world. And then all of a sudden, anger's not the bad guy. Like, anger is just an energy that helps us to deal with the things that we need to stand up for. So that was where my insight with anger went this year. I don't know if that makes any sense with your question, but that's what happened for me.
So the idea that I'm associating anger with discomfort is just my associating anger with it. But if I look at it another way, the anger is an expression of what's inside, and I should actually pay attention to it. Is that what? And it's no longer an uncomfortable thing, something that I should avoid. Is that what you're saying?
For me, it's the
uncomfortable thing. No,
yeah.
The uncomfortable changes definition. So it's a switcheroo. Is that?
Yeah, it's like because. So I can get angry. It's like I can get angry at my husband, and it might not be the same thing as getting angry at the journalist, and have some thinking about what's going on. But what happens for me, it's like it's like you can have a sense of separation from the anger. It's like it's almost like, and I'm not saying this is how it works for me 100% of the time, but when I notice the feelings that I'm experiencing, it gives me a sense of separation from it. So like when I notice that I'm getting angry, it gives me a sense of separation from the anger, which then enables me to see more clearly what the anger is about and whether it's something to pay attention to or not. So when I talk about when I get angry with my husband, it might be because he's not put his socks in the wash basket, and it's not a big deal. And so because I see and experience the anger and notice it, it just gives me choice in the moment as to how much I'm going to allow it to take over me, or whether it's I know that most of the time it doesn't, luckily for me, it doesn't happen very often. I don't get angry at my husband that often. But when I do, being able to see the anger and the feeling enables me to most of the time not say or do anything in the moment. And then what happens when my mind settles down, usually I see that whatever it was that I was angry about was something and nothing. And then occasionally it will be, actually, yeah, there was something important there. And then I have a conversation with him. Does that make sense?
The feeling of separating, or being able to separate yourself from this entity of anger, whatever it might be that makes you uncomfortable. I think that makes sense to me, if I'm able to do it.
I know. It's really funny because like when in a previous relationship, or like in a very angry kind of relationship, I used to be very, very shouty in that relationship. And, you know, we're all mostly women here, or people who at least know about women and their, you know, cycles and things. At my periods during the month, the weekend before my period, I would be vile. Like completely and utterly vile, to the point where my partner at the time would go out for the day and leave me alone because he just knew there was no point being around me. And I remember having these shouting, I was going to say shouting matches. They weren't, because he never used to shout back, which was half the problem because it used to annoy me even more. So I'd be shouting at him, and I would be able to see that I was being completely irrational. And I never knew what that was then. Like, I had no understanding whatsoever of the principles or how this works. But now when I look back at it, I can see how that was, like, how I see it. It's like who I really am, seeing my thinking. That's how it seems to me. And I don't experience it that way 100% of the time by any stretch of the imagination. But it's like that part of me that is always okay, is untouched by all of this, can see it. And it's there all the time, regardless of whether we're paying attention or not, regardless of whether we notice it or not. I really noticed it strongly when a couple of years ago, my husband collapsed on a flight. We were 20 minutes into an 8-hour flight and he collapsed, and both of us thought he was going to die. And I had the most anxiety I've ever experienced in my life. But it was almost like the anxiety was here and I was looking at the anxiety. Like, I really had a really strong experience of that separation from all of this anxious thinking and who I am observing all of that. I don't get that very often, but just the fact that I've experienced it a few times in my life really makes me aware of it. And so when I notice the feeling of being angry or frustrated or whatever it is that I feel, noticing it gives me that sense of separation. So in that experience on the plane, it felt like there was a big gap between my thinking and who I really am. Most of the time that gap feels really small, but just that slight noticing just makes that gap just enough to, it just gives me different options, like seeing the thinking that I have going on. It just I don't know, it just kind of tightens the grip, loosens the reins, not tightens them, loosens them.
That makes sense. I like that. Thank you.
Ildiko, were you just moving your hand, or did you want to say something?
I was just moving my hand, but actually, I had a similar experience. Oh gosh, talking about the unknown this year. In May, my partner decided he didn't want to live with me anymore. So I've been through 6-7 months of going up and down like a yo-yo, angry with him 1 minute, understanding the next, feeling like I'm absolutely like I'm crazy in my head, and the next minute settling down. And I've been dreading selling the house, and then we sold it yesterday, and I can't tell you how peaceful I feel. I'm exhausted, but if you'd have told me at the beginning of the year, well, this was going to happen, I wouldn't have believed you. If you'd have told me that I could go through what I've been through and sit here today, and have this feeling of peace, I wouldn't believe that either. And the amazing thing was we actually ended up having a long conversation last night. I'm kicked out at my mother's at the minute. He stayed in a hotel room last night because neither of our new properties are ready. And we just had the most amazing conversation last night for like an hour and a quarter on the phone. And this is the guy who won't talk for more than, a minute on the phone normally. And I was like, I think this is the first time in 5 years you've talked to me for this long on the phone. Oh. And it was beautiful, and it was really understanding, and he still loves me, I still love him. He just feels he wants to live on his own, and he's got a lot of issues in his mind, which actually I think I really understood for the first time last night. I really understood. And it just popped into my head a few weeks ago. I said, do you think, because when I talked back with his mum about how he was when he was young and all that, and his daughter was diagnosed with, they thought she had OCD a couple of years ago, but actually they said no, we think she's got mild autism. And when I talked to him, and I said, do you think maybe that's what you've got? Just popped into my head a couple of weeks ago. And we talked it through last night, and he said, what Charlotte has, he said, I have that. He said, much more severely. And I think I've had it ever since I was a child. We went back through his education. We went back through when he gets stressed, what happens in this mind, how he can't cope with loud noises and all these things, that it all just ticked like a box. And he's just been fighting his whole life he just says how much he hates himself sometimes because he just wants to be the person who can get married and live with someone forever. And he's so gutted he hasn't been able to do it. And to be in that space where you can actually hear that when you're out of your own head is just so grateful for that. So who knows what the future brings? We're going to live in the same village. We're going to live in separate places, and the whole rest. I don't know. I may meet someone else. I may choose to go my own way, but equally, I know I love him, and I know he loves me. But I don't. It's just so nice to just think that I don't need to decide. I don't need to have the pressure of knowing what the future brings. I just got to live in this moment. And when we were connected last night and talking like that, that's what it felt like. And every time I do see him or I don't see him, if we're going to have a few months of not having any contact, just to both recover and heal and see how we feel. But it's just so nice. That's why I really want to come on this call tonight about the unknown. That's what grabbed me, because I was like, that's me right now. And I'm excited about the things that I'm going to do. I'm not frightened to live on my own again. I'm like, oh, think of all the things that I stopped doing that I'm not doing, the things that I can create. Yeah.
Oh, that's so lovely. It's so lovely how, you can go through what seems like a really, really horrible experience, but still be okay. And the fact that you're seeing that while you're still in it, like you're still going through it all, that's just incredible. Like, I think back, like when I look back over my life and the dark times in my life, when I look back at them now, I can see how my wisdom was guiding me, where mine was taking care of things, even though I didn't know it was happening, but I couldn't see that then. And like, it's not about wanting to make everything right. It's just being okay with everything that is at the moment. I love that, what you're saying. And really and truly, I found that the less expectation I have, it's almost like I was doing an interview with my writing coach, who's also a 3 Principles, and she's been around the Principles for a long time. I was listening to the recording of it today because getting it ready to be edited slightly before it goes out. And what I was going to say has just disappeared. I have no clue what I was going to say. Talk about being in the unknown. I mean, if that doesn't prove the point, what does? Like, I thought I knew what I was going to say, and it's my head and it's my mouth and it's my words. Yeah, I just remembered now. So it's my life and her life, like we were both talking about having had a very similar experience. Like with our hopes and dreams, what we're doing now, our hopes and dreams didn't even come close to. Like the ideas about what I wanted to do with my life and how it would pan out were nowhere near as good as what's actually happened. And the same, she had a very similar experience in that she's now doing something that she never dreamed that she would be doing, and is absolutely loving it, is loving her life. And it's just without having expectations of anything, it's amazing what can bring. So just letting go of any expectation of whether you get back together or don't get back together, and just being in the moment whenever we possibly can, without anything on what might happen as a result of it. You just never know what's gonna happen. And like if we know that, you know, we're always okay no matter what we go through, no matter what happens to this physical body, that part of us that is who we really are, like the bit that we can't touch. You know, I can touch this bit, but I can't touch that part of me that is actually who I am, the part that will leave this body at some point. That bit it's not touched by anything that goes on in our head, good, bad, or indifferent. And it's not touched by anything that goes on in the outside world, good, bad, or indifferent. Thank you so much, Ildiko, for sharing that, even though you didn't put your hand up.
I was about to anyway.
Thank you. Whichever way it turns out, you're always going to be okay.
It was funny actually. He's just texted me while I've been on the call, because I was all like, "You're not living in the same village as me. I don't want to bump into you in your phone." I was all like this in my head. And then last night I was like, "Get the flat. It's such a beautiful flat that he wants to buy, which is in the same village." And I will go when I'm running. I'll be running past him or whatever. And anyway, we had a chat last night, and it turns out he's just texted me now. I've got both flats. His brother's investing in the other one. They're going to do one up, and he's going to live in the one in the village. And I'm just going to text him back now, so I'm pleased for him.
One of the things that, you know, when I look back to that shouty relationship that I used to be in, like I was with that guy for 11 years. And the night that I met him, I told him I would never marry him. Like, talk about predicting the future. And like the whole time we were together, like he wanted us to get married, and there was a part of me that was saying no, like no way. I don't see it in quite the same way now, but at the time I knew I shouldn't be in that relationship. It wasn't a good relationship. And when I left him, I said to him, "You don't love me, because nobody looks at a woman the way that you look at me if they love them." And what I see now is that I think he did love me, but he didn't know how. And I have a completely different now relationship with my idea of him. Like I never see him. It's a long time ago now, 20 odd years ago since that relationship. It took me a long time to have that kind of compassion for him that you've got right now. It took me years and years and years to have that kind of compassion for him.
Mm.
Anybody else? Thank you, again.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, it's Robin. Sorry, I'll put this on. I was eating my lunch while you were talking before. Sorry, see if we can see it. So I didn't want you guys watching me eat. I just want to say this has been fabulous today. I've just sort of got so many ahas as all of you were talking with your different stories and sort of giving me more insights to what sort of happened in my life and just resonating with things. And I'm thinking, oh, this is fantastic. I loved the title too, and I was curious what the heck it might be all about. I love the 3 principles. I've been following now for a few years, and I would love to be able to share it with people if I can. Haven't got that going as yet. But it's funny, it's been a weird year, obviously, for everyone, but I feel so calm about it. I really don't know what the heck is going to happen with me, but I feel okay about it now. And I'm thinking, I love this, you know, I'm not feeling scared. I'm not anxious. I just somehow have a knowing that things will all work out just fine. And this year has worked out fine. And, you know, hopefully they'll just get better and better as well. So thank you for sharing. I loved your idea of your writing at the beginning too. And isn't that great how it was something so simple and then it had such an effect with other people and it just, you know, has a life of its own that you never even probably imagined for it. So yeah. Really inspiring. Thank you. Really loved this today.
Yeah. Thank you, Robin.
You're most welcome.
Yeah. What you just said then, it's just triggered me. It's like my blind spot has always been scarcity around money. And so the 1 year when actually the thing that I'm most scared of actually has happened, I've been the least scared of it.
Ah, okay.
That's really weird.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm still not good at catching myself at times with some of these things, right? But the more I hear people talk about it and sort of this distance that you feel away from something and observing it, I think that will come. I've been hearing it now so many times, sort of in different ways. I'm thinking, you know, one day it will trigger for me too, that I will have that. And I think, oh, fantastic. Now I'm seeing it myself. Yeah. Yeah. Good space to be.
Yeah. The thing that I found with most of the people that I work with, so I'm working with writers, but I also work with a lot of coaches. And all of the people that I work with in terms of talking about the principles, one of the things that I know is true for all of them is that they think they're not seeing anything because they keep on having the same experiences. Okay. So like, you know, like my thing was like worry about money, anxiety about money, all that kind of thing. Bye, Lynn. Thank you for joining us. One of the things that I know happens when I get people to start noticing the times when they're feeling okay and ordinary and normal, rather than focusing their attention on all the things that are still the same. One of the things that I find, especially people who've been around the principles for a little while now, it's like they totally discount the changes that have already happened. Now, this is something that, you know, I've somehow got into the habit of noticing when things are different for the better, more so than focusing on the things that feel like they're still the same. And what I found from experience is that most people, when they start noticing how it's the same but different, like you like with mine and the blind spot around money, it's like, yeah, I still have those money worries every now and again, but they don't last for very long. They kind of come and go really quickly. Now I could get hung up on the fact that I still have money worries sometimes, rather than focus on, well, I have money worries sometimes, but it's not like it used to be. And like, you know, if I get angry, it's like, I know that I can be quiet. I can stay quiet. Like I don't let my anger take me over. I can still get angry. So I could think, well, these principles don't work because I still get angry. But like the principles won't stop us having any of those experiences, but they change our relationship with it.
Yes.
So I would guess if you've been around the principles for a while, there's a lot of things that is different for you. And there's some things that feel the same, but I bet they're a bit different.
Right. Yes, yes. No doubt. Some things definitely are, and I've noticed some of them, but yeah, I think there must be more of them too. Because I always would have sort of been thinking, well, how am I going to be helping people? How am I going to be of service? Where's the money going to come in? When is it going to come in? And I sort of still have those questions, but I'm not worrying about them. I'm just somehow feeling it's all going to be fine.
Yeah.
It will work out somehow.
Because without the worry, they are kind of valid questions, aren't they?
Yes. Yeah, they are. But you're just sort of proving, just things can the small little things that you don't even think of can take you in a totally different direction.
Yeah.
Which is really kind of cool. And I sort of had the thought of maybe that's what it is. Maybe what I think I'm trying to be going after and doing, it's maybe not that at all. Maybe it's something different altogether. And that just hasn't quite occurred to me as yet, or, taken me in that way.
Yeah. Or maybe it's just not the time yet.
Mm-hmm.
So because like I've been self-employed for 11 years. And for quite a few years, I was working mostly with leaders. In fact, I've been working mostly with leaders right up until March this year. And before I knew about the principles, I qualified as a coach supervisor. And so I also work as a coach supervisor. But I only ever had a very small number of coaches that I was working with as a supervisor. And like it would often go in my mind about I want to work with more, because working with coaches is just so lovely. Like I want to work with more coaches, but it never was happening. And it's funny because this year, without me thinking I want to work with more coaches, like I don't know how many I've got on my books now. It must be nearly 20 coaches I'm working with now.
Wow.
Like, and at the beginning of the year, I probably had 6. And it's just felt like, you know what I was saying earlier about trying to push the rock uphill?
Yes.
Like, we don't need to push the rock uphill. Like being in the moment, just following what feels right to us. So some of the things that have felt right to me over the last few years have been doing things like writing articles, speaking at conferences if I can do that, offering myself as a speaker at different things, doing little videos that we've put out, not in any kind of, like we had a conversation with a social media consultant. I worked with a social media consultant for a year. And he said right at the beginning, right, what we're going to do is we're going to do a plan and we're going to do a strategy. And I said, no, if that's how you want to work, then we're not doing it. that doesn't fit with me. And he was lovely. He was absolutely fine. He was like, okay, yeah, we'll work it however you want to work it. And so I kind of had a very organic way of doing things on social media without it having a massive, because he was like, how many times are you going to do a newsletter and how often are you going to post on social media? And you need to be doing something every day. And I'm going, no, I can't be doing all of that.
Yeah.
But I've been like doing things as it made sense to do. And I have been doing a lot more social media things and a lot more article things, but I've been doing them when it's felt right to me to do, as opposed to me saying I have to do it at this regimented fashion.
Yes.
And it feels like all of that has just been gradually bringing me to the point where I am now.
Great.
And I wish I'd known that.
Sure.
It would have been so much helpful to
Yeah,
sort of know.
2020 hindsight's always great.
I know, yeah. And that's all we've got. But the thing about the 2020 hindsight when we look back is, like, the more I've looked back and seen wisdom guiding me, and I've got the breadcrumbs that go right back to when I was a child. I can see how wisdom was guiding me, even at times when I thought it wasn't. Like, now I can see that it gives me, when I think about it, it gives me hope and faith and trust in it in the future. But one of the things I've been seeing this year more than anything is that when I'm just living it, I don't need hope, trust, and faith in the future. It's just all part of it. Like it's just all there.
Yes, I can understand that.
What time is it? Oh, it's
Time, yes. I have a call coming in at 3 too, I think. So, sorry, top of the hour. Thank you so much for your time with me too. That's been great chatting with you today. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robin.
Take care.
Yeah, Maria, thank you so much. I really, really loved this conversation, and just in reflecting on some of the things as you were saying them, and this past year for me, I can look back and see how, I still worry about the same things that I've worried about, but I've gotten, I don't know if it's grace or what, but I've been able to notice very quickly before I get really wound up, like, which is probably not the norm for when you think about what we've been through as a world in this past year. But it's really, noticing it has really allowed me to settle down and live very comfortably and not knowing what's coming next. And then that comfort really has allowed me to take the next step of whatever comes. It's like, then I can hear, minus the getting wound up, even if the worried thoughts are still there, I can still hear mine come telling me what my next step is. And it's just, it's yeah, anyway, that's what I've noticed when you were talking. So thank you.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah, so hey everyone, thank you for participating. This was a very lively webinar, and I want to let everyone know about the next webinar we're doing. It's going to be a little bit different. We are going to have a webinar on Thursday, December 17th. It's going to be 2 hours from 2 to 4 Eastern time, so whatever that is in your time zone. And it's going to be with what I've been calling the originals, a bunch of the original students of Sid Banks. I'm not calling them the old timers or whatever, because that's what a lot of people, they're the originals. So, and it's going to be a lot of sharing of, Kathy Casey had called them her learning bloopers, or some funny disasters in their teaching history. And, just some experiences that they've had with Sid. And I think that I know a lot of people have heard a lot of stories about people working with Sid in the past, but I have a suspicion this is going to be a lot of new stories that maybe we haven't heard before. So I hope you can all join us. I think it's going to be really a fun couple of hours, but it will be recorded. And I will put Maria's information on underneath the recording when I post it on YouTube. So if you want to get in touch with her, you'll have a way. Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Thank you, Bonnie, and thank you everybody for joining me today.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Bye-bye. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.